Good morning, afternoon, or night, depending on what time you're watching this. This is Melanin Mindset, a show that looks at mental health issues within the Black community. And today I'm joined with a guest. Guest, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Earle, and I am a wellbeing consultant and also a mental health practitioner with a local charity here in Bristol, where I live.
Fantastic. Okay, Michael. So how have you been coping over the past year? You know, we've been in and out of lockdown. How's it been for you?
Yeah, it's, to be honest, O'Neill, it's been a bit of a struggle. Actually, it's been difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I believe in being realistic. Mm-hmm. We have had to make major adjustments, you know, in our lives. Myself and my wife, I'm married to Joanna, who's a consultant pediatrician. And so we've had to basically move all our operations to home now. We're both working from home. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, we have the space to have separate rooms, but I mean, it's still a struggle. You know, you're in the same place and in the same space where you live and work, which has basically reversed everything, because before you used to go to work and it was, you had that distance, physical distance from what you did, you came back, but now it can be quite demanding. And what I'm finding difficult is setting the boundaries, having the boundaries. Okay, this is work time. This is time to do stuff at home or family stuff. So that has been a big struggle for both of us, actually, amongst other things. But that's been the big one that we've really noticed, that, you know, when to cut off, when to stop, and say, okay, look, it's stopped now. Now it's home time. So that has been a struggle, definitely.
So imagine I'm still going into work into an office, so
all right.
my situation hasn't changed in that respect. But it must be I still think it must be quite strange. At what point does it go from working to home when you don't leave the house? Do you know what I mean? Like, how does that work?
Absolutely. What the plan that I put in place, and I'm trying to put in place with my wife, is that, you know, we stick to the same time. So the physical time on the clock. So you start at 9 and you finish at 5. But that is a struggle, but we have had to sort of be very, very strict with that. And so you shut down the computer, you turn off the work mobile, and because we have separate rooms, we come out of those rooms, we go downstairs to the lounge. Okay, and I appreciate not everyone has that space, and I'm not trying to be funny, but some people live in a flat. That's hard. That's tough. So because we have the space, we're able to sort of manage it a little better, but it's still a struggle. So timing, looking at the clock and saying, right, no, it's 5 o'clock, I'm going to stop now. That's been one of the things that's been keeping us going. Having boundaries, putting them in place, and reminding each other to say, no, it's gone 5 o'clock now. Put the phone down. Stop. You know, rather than, oh, I'll just make one more call. It won't take long. I'll just do another Zoom. You know, because it's so tempting.
Yeah. My brother-in-law, he works at home. He works from home, but a lot of the time during his lunch break, he'll go out for a walk or he'll go for a bike ride. Do you do anything like that?
Absolutely. I am a massive advocate of taking lunch breaks at work, always have been, for your well-being and mental health. So I usually do my walks in the morning. So I sort of have a morning routine, and part of that morning routine is going for a 5-mile walk. I get up early enough to do that, but I still take my
5 miles.
Yeah.
Oh.
I do that every day. It's one of the things that I need to keep my well-being in balance. It gives me personal space as well, because it gives you time to think. So that is now that's a part of my daily routine now. That's not going to change, I don't think, ever. It's an amazing space and time to do things. And taking a break in the middle of your workday is very important. Really, really important to do that, and not to work through. Working through is dangerous for physically, mentally, emotionally, and it doesn't work. Your productivity and quality of work goes down when you don't take a work break in your lunch. When you don't take lunch. So it's not worth it. There's no benefit.
Were you doing these walks before lockdown, or is this something that you've always done?
No, funny enough, this started because of the lockdown, because, you know, when the gyms got shut, because I'm a gym goer. I used to go to the gym. That was part of my thing. And I love that. Again, both reasons, physical and mental. So when the gym shut down, I had to find another way of exercising, of moving my body, because if I kept still, you know, it wasn't going to be good. So the easiest thing to do was to walk, and, you know, walk local area. Then I found a cycle path, a footpath. So now I have a route that I use every day. But yeah, I had to do something. I could not keep still and say, just stay in the house and work all day. That wasn't going to happen. It's not good.
No, that's not your forte. That's not something for you.
No, and I think generally for people to physically keep moving, it really works for the well-being of the individual and, you know, family members as well. So keeping the body moving has a direct link to how our well-being is affected as well. Absolutely.
I used to do long walks with, like, I found it therapeutic. I used to like literally just, like you said, 5 mile walks. I used to walk from, I lived in Easton at the time, so I used to walk from Easton, just off Stapleton Road, to Ashton, to Ashton Gate Stadium,
Wow,
City Ground, and back.
that's a good walk.
Yeah, I mean, I used to work up there, so I
Oh,
knew,
okay.
so I would sometimes just walk to work, but
Yeah.
just in general, I would just, even when I finished working at that place,
Mm-hmm.
I just do that walk, it was a therapeutic walk for me. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do understand the benefits of, you know, going for long. You get to clear your head as well sometimes, and just,
Yeah, definitely.
you know.
Yeah, definitely good for clearing the mind, for thinking, and for generating ideas as well.
Yeah,
You get loads of ideas when you're walking on your own with that space, or, you know, with a friend or partner, wherever, with a group. It's got so many benefits. Physical exercise linked to well-being. Yeah, lots of positive research about that.
brilliant, brilliant. So you said you're a mental health consultant.
A well-being consultant, but a mental
Well-being
health practitioner. Mental health
mental
practitioner
health, right?
with Nilari. Yeah.
Nilari. Okay, and for those that don't know, what is Nilari?
Right. Nilari is it's a culturally sensitive mental health charity. So we specifically work with members of the BAME community, but we do work with anyone across the city. But we that's our niche. Our niche is you know, Black and Asian minority communities, because what we have found is that it's harder for them to access the mainline mental health organizations and charities and practitioners. And sometimes what has been happening, and I think is still happening at the moment, there's a bit of misunderstanding of cultures.
Right.
So people can be misunderstood, behaviors, language is obviously another barrier as well. So we have a multicultural team that deal with the different members and types of the community in Bristol and across the city and locally as well, that are culturally sensitive, I think is the best way to put it. And we have been very successful. Nilari has been around now for over 20 years, successfully helping people, across the city of Bristol. And I'm very proud to be working with them. It's just been over a year and a half I've been working with them now. But fantastic work that they do. Really enjoy it.
Brilliant. Now, how did you get involved? You said you've been there for a year and a half. So how did you first get involved?
My original career background, O'Neill, is social care. So I have been a social worker with Bristol City Council for 12 years. And then I left Bristol City Council about 5 years ago to start my own wellbeing consultancy, because I saw a need for professionals to have that sort of area to look after their well-being. Because at the time I was noticing staff weren't getting that sort of well-being need looked after. So I decided to do something about it rather than to complain. So I set up my wellbeing consultancy, was running that for about 5 years. And then I got a call from the manager of Nilari, who I have known through my work with social care. And she knew that I'd left. And so she said, oh, I've got a position for you, but I'm not too sure if you're interested. And before she finished the sentence, I said, yes, I'll do it. I don't know what it is, but I'll do it. So I just said, yeah, I just said yes straight away, because I thought this is amazing. Really wanted to work with these guys. So basically, she was looking for somebody. I was like, couldn't say no to an amazing agency like that. And we came together. So I work for them 3 days a week. And the other 2 days of the week, I do my wellbeing consultancy. So it's perfect for me. Absolutely perfect opportunity, which I would not pass up at all.
All right. And how do you feel when you're doing like the wellbeing consultancy? What is that? Do you have like is there like a common narrative with the BAME people when you're doing what's like a common?
Yeah, what I've found, O'Neill, a lot is that a lot of people are working under stress and a lot of anxiety. and I have been working directly and one-to-one with members of the BAME community, you know, Black Afro-Caribbean, Asian as well. And just recently, those two things have been flagged up: anxiety and stress, especially anxiety over job security, not knowing whether or not that job's, you know, the contract's going to be extended or not. So I'm helping them to manage that, because we know it's not going to go away. That's not the issue. We're very realistic, but it's about managing that situation and not allowing the anxiety levels to raise to the point where it actually affects how you work, which is a dangerous level where it actually sort of stops you from functioning. And it has happened. You know, some people really get very, very anxious, you know, afraid to go out, afraid to go to work, out in public. And the other issue as well is in males, particularly suicide, very high rates of male suicide. And obviously this pandemic situation is just sort of exaggerating that. It's just making it come more and more to the fore. So there's a lot of people that need help out there.
That's great. As you say that, I'll give you a little insight into why one of the reasons why I even started this podcast. I was doing some e-learning at work, and came across, I think it was an equalities one, and it said that men suffer mental health issues in the workplace, 60% more than the female counterparts, 60%. And I remember just looking at that and thinking, that can't, like, 60%, that's too much. But it's fact that men do suffer, suffer these issues. And I think it's because we're less likely to speak or seek help.
Yeah. That's it. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that is absolutely correct. Men are less likely to seek therapeutic help. And you mentioned it a little bit earlier. The thing is with men, and again, it's based around stereotypes and images that, are portrayed, and men are told that you're supposed to get on with things and bear it and, don't complain. And so now that is, sadly, feeding into mental health, where they think, well, it's, if I talk about it, it's a sign of weakness. And if I think that, if I'm labeled as having a mental health illness or a complaint, I could lose my job. So they don't say anything. So they just suffer, they just carry on and suffer with it. And in relation to male suicide, men are 70% more successful. When I say successful, they actually commit suicide and die. Women, it's like, they're attempting it and it's like a cry for help.
Yeah.
But men will just go and they'll just go and do it. And recently heard of a colleague contacted me and said that, a family went home and found the head of the home, their father, just hung. They just came home and that was it. So horrible experience. And that was recently.
Wow.
Very recent. Yeah, they came home and they found the father, dad there just hung. So this is happening now. This is real stuff.
And is that a lot in the BAME community? Because when I think about the concept of, like, when I think about suicide, I rarely, and I'm obviously wrong for me to think this way, but I rarely think of it as a Black issue or a BAME issue, let's just say. I mean, am I completely wrong in that?
Yeah, it's men of all races and backgrounds, actually. O'Neill, black, white, yeah. Not specifically more than the other in any particular race, but men in general, 70% more likely. Yeah, and the statistics, well, the last couple I heard about were Black males, actually, sadly to say.
Do you think that is more of the society that we're in, or do you think is a more of a global thing, or do you think that's more of a local thing that's leading them to
in my personal opinion, I have to say personal, I think a lot of it has been fueled by the stereotypes that men have generally been, brought up with, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That thing about always having to be the breadwinner, the leader, the one that has the responsibility. And so there's this thing about being, a strong Black man. And I'm sure you've heard the thing about, Black women are strong as well. So there's this thing about you having to be like, you're extra strong. So displaying any signs of weakness is like not really on the table. That's not happening. But we are trying to move away from that, O'Neill, because that mentality is literally dangerous. It is killing people. You know, we're moving to the area now where we're encouraging people to have conversations, to start conversations, because that's how the help begins. You have the conversations, you don't keep it to yourself. And then there are agencies like ourselves, like Nilari, and lots of other agencies as well, that are willing to listen. So there's the two things have to happen. The person has to feel like they will be listened to allow them to speak. Otherwise, if they think they're not going to be understood, they won't say anything. Yeah. Or if they've had a bad experience, which sometimes happens, they might have a bad experience and say, well, look, I tried to speak to somebody, nothing happened. So do you know what? I think I'll just keep it to myself. Blam, shut down. Yeah. And again, that's what we don't want. So that is what we're trying to walk away from that.
It's the open ear approach, isn't it? It's somebody feeling that they can comfortably express themselves without ridicule, without judgment. And
absolutely. Absolutely, 100%, 100%. And I think generally, as a point, O'Neill, in conversations, people like to be listened to generally, you know, but even so, with a sensitive subject like your mental health or how your feelings and emotions, you know, we've really got to sort of, as you say, perfectly said, have the open ear and the closed mouth. You know, it's not about telling people what to do. Sometimes the therapy is in the person being listened to. That is, and I found that myself very, very powerful, because people have come away and said, do you know what? I think that's the first time someone's actually listened to me. Because what they have been experiencing in other facilities is speaking and then being told what the problem is and being given a diagnosis. And they're thinking, hang on a minute, I haven't finished my story. So, you know, just allowing somebody to say, look, this is what's happening for me at the moment. This is where I'm at, is the start of the therapy, and sometimes can be the therapy itself. You know, just somebody's actually just sat down and listened to you. That is simple, but it's very, very powerful.
And how does the process work with Nilari? So is it something that people have to reach out and access, or do they get referred, or how does it work?
It's a good question. It's a combination. So we will take referrals from agencies, e.g., you know, probation, your local GP, other organizations, police as well, or people can self-refer. So if you wanted to contact Nilari and, you know, for yourself, you could do that. Just a matter of, you know, contacting us on the website. There's a phone number there. You just ring in and then somebody will talk with you and start the process and let you know what's happening. But yeah, it's all about sometimes having the courage. That's the tough thing, because making that call or allowing somebody to make the call for you is a huge step. And sometimes it might take people years to make that first step. And that's the thing. And that's why we can't judge people, because, you know, say, oh, why did it take you so long? You know, no. The fact that they've come forward is enough.
Yeah.
And then we deal with it from there.
Yeah.
We deal with it from there, and we take that, we go on the journey with that person. You know, we have to go on their journey. We can't take them on ours. We have to go on theirs.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do. You have to go on their journey, because if you don't, you're not going to make any progress. It's not going to work.
I feel what you're saying when you say, like, when people say, why did it take so long? I used to even have that mindset where it's like, you know, you have a woman who has been sexually harassed, you know, like the recent stuff with celebrities and things like that. And it's been 20 years, even 30 years. And now they're coming out and saying, this happened to me from this person. And a lot of times we do judge and we say, well, you know, why didn't you say at the time? Or why did it take you 20 years? But what we don't realize is it took them 20 years. So just think about how much it's impacted them and how much it's held them back. Like, it took them 20 years to finally reach that point of courage to be able to speak on it. So that's just how powerful these things can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, especially, you know, domestic abuse, again, that's been obviously on the increase because of where we are right now, where we're living in the situation. And yes, it's going to take people a long time to readjust to that. And as you correctly said, I like that, getting the courage, because it is a very courageous act to say to somebody, you know, or to yourself, I can't take this anymore. I need to go and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And again, you know, especially if everything looks, you know, rosy on the outside, you're going to think, is anyone actually going to believe me? And that's the other thing. People say, hang on a minute, you know, is anyone going to believe me? They're going to think I'm joking because everything looks pretty on the outside, but they don't know the hell that person could be going through. So yeah, courage is huge, huge bravery. And then to move on and change your life after 20 years, that's massive. That's a massive thing.
As a culture, I mean, I'm just going from experience, but one thing I've heard many a time is, I don't want people knowing my business, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
Now, as a Black or BAME or multicultural run organization, it's very like, you know, a lot of Black people may know a lot of other Black people, or just bet that person knows my parent or knows my grandparent, etc. Nilari being that organization, do you think it's harder for somebody from a person of color to make that step to self-refer themselves, because they might think like, oh, but you know, Michael works there, I know him, or you know, this person knows somebody I know, or I know people that work there, or I'm familiar with these people. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, O'Neill, and I agree with that. Yes, there is this belief, then let's call it a belief, that you know, you don't want people to know your business. Yeah, everyone just keep my business to myself. Okay, and especially now, if you're going to be talking about your health, you know, with money. Yeah, okay, it's money. I don't people know about my business about my money, but then you're going to be talking to people about your mental health. Again, very, very sort of sensitive topic. And as you said, sometimes people might think, well, it's a Black organization and they might know my nan or my brother or whatever. What we try to do, we are very sensitive to that. We're very aware of it. So we try and make sure that if a name comes in, we'll all look at it. So there'll be like a sort of a meeting that we'll have to sort of delegate the roles. And we make sure as best we can that we don't allocate that particular person to somebody who may know them or have a connection.
Right.
So we are very sensitive of what you just said, extremely, because we know that can be an issue to stop someone from coming forward. So we try to avoid that as best we can. And because the team is quite diverse and fairly, you know, fairly large, not massive, very large, we're able to do that. Other times it might work positively, because what happens is they might get a referral from someone they know and say, actually, look, the place to go is Nilari because they can help you, you know? So it can work on the positive as well. It's not all negative. People can actually say, you know, well, actually Nilari is a safe place to go and talk about your business because this is how they treat you. So we've had that as well. We've had people come because they felt safe, or someone's told them that, look, you know, try Nilari, try the other places, try Nilari. They'll listen to you. So we've had positive referrals as well, which is what we want, people to actually come out and to start talking. But as you said, O'Neill, it's very difficult for people and men in particular, you know, to actually come in and look at you and say, I need help. You know, those three words there, the beginning of the journey, are probably for some people the hardest three words to say. You know, you get men, you know, they'll say everything else, they'll cuss you, they'll shout at you, but to say those three words, I need help, for some people, that's probably the longest, hardest sentence they're ever going to say in their lives. Those three words, I need help. That's that. They'll say everything else, but get them to say those three words.
It's making yourself vulnerable, isn't it? Making yourself open.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you're not open, then you're not gonna be willing to, you know, to do the work. So that is the motivator. When someone comes in and says, I need help, we know we can start the journey. That's the beginning of the journey. But until that happens, until that person is self-motivated, or they see that need, or they got to that point, we can't force anybody. And none of the sessions that we do our work, we don't drag people along. You know, they have got to come on that journey. You know, the minute if they want to stop halfway through, we say that's your choice. We don't, you know, we won't force people to do anything. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Never will. It never has. Never will. They've got to want to come and say, yeah, I'm ready now. I'm ready to sit down and listen. I'm ready to do the work, because, you know, where I've reached now, I can't go anywhere else. And every person will come to that point in their own time, in their time, not mine, theirs.
Okay, so you mentioned people come in and making that decision and taking that step. You've also mentioned that Nilari's been around for 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that Nilari does to promote and advertise themselves? Do you go into certain workplaces or organizations or even schools or religious organizations? Do you do anything like that?
Yeah, we do. We're very well connected in Bristol with very well known to the police, the police constabulary here, schools, universities, University of the West of England. We're in with the University of Bristol, so they know about us. We have links there, and we actually go in and do. We used to go in and do sessions before COVID hit. We would actually be going in to do sessions with young people. So yeah, we try and promote ourselves with the agencies and organisations that need us the most. And we're always open to making new connections as well. So, we have the website, and if anybody wants to contact us, we can. So we're always open, always having conversations. And we have our administrators and our funders who actually, bid for funding to keep us going, because that's how we are a charity. So that's how we keep going. We get going by funding from the local authority and from other charities. And because of the results that we give, and obviously we have to feed back our impact, people see the results that we get. So we are successful in our bidding for funding, thank God, and I'm glad to say that. So our work speaks for itself. So that's why we kept going. So we have a reputation. Usually, when you go into a mental health circle and start having a conversation, and you mention Nilari, people will say, "Yeah, Nilari." Not because of the fancy adverts, but because of the results of our work.
Right.
So we might not be as high profile in advertising and other agencies that who have them lots of money, but our impact speaks for itself, and it gets those bids in because that people know the work that we do, and we are accountable to our bidders clearly, because otherwise you wouldn't get funded.
Right. Brilliant. I mean, you mentioned schools and young people, which is what I was going to ask you about actually. So obviously young people now, it's different to when I was in school anyway. There was no social media when I was in school.
Yeah.
And obviously, about things like online bullying and things like that now, of that nature. So is that a common thread, or are there other even deeper issues that are happening with the young people nowadays?
That is, as you said, that's a major one, because of social media and smartphones now, that can take place 24/7. That doesn't shut down. When we were growing up in school, sorry, I say myself, when I was growing up in school, you had someone teasing you, you had a fight after school, then you went home. It was done. Yeah. But now, all when they're going to go to bed, social media taunting, all that sort of stuff, the cyberbullying, yes, is that is a massive issue. Massive issue. And especially now with the isolation we had with the pandemic, I think what the pandemic has done is just actually exaggerated those issues as well now, which made it more difficult, because you have to stay. I know we're coming out of the lockdown now, thankfully, thank God. But in that first year, it was tough. All that sort of stuff, yeah, exaggerated and amplified, definitely. So we've had to be really, really aware of that, and be able to, again, just allow people to talk about that, express it. And it's so powerful. And I've repeated it, but it's very powerful, just allowing people to talk about how they're feeling, because how somebody feels is their reality. Yeah, whether or not I'm affected by it or not, that's not the issue. How somebody feels by what's happened to them, that's the reality. And that's what we're dealing with, how they feel at the time, whatever it was, because we're different. Somebody might send you a funny text, only might say, shit, fine, you might just delete it. Yeah, someone else gets that same text, and that could break them. That could tear them down. Right. So it's how it makes the person feel, not what I think about it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I totally agree. In our culture, the culture that I grew up, I'm West Indian background. And as we were saying before we even started this, that the concept of therapy and counselling isn't really a go-to. It's not really something that is spoken about. A lot of the times it's pray and you'll be fine. But what do you think can be done to sort of tackle that mindset?
I believe, yeah, I'm from a similar background as yourself, O'Neill. Afro-Caribbean parents were both from Jamaica, both deceased now. And yeah, in their generation, therapy, let's just say it like this then, okay? Afro-Caribbeans weren't renowned for going into therapy, yeah? We would either just like, people to say to you, pull yourself together, or you'll get over it.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things. And so what was happening is that all those, your feelings and emotions were being repressed. He's like, no, you shouldn't be talking about that. And as you said, it's like a taboo subject. But I think what's happening now, I think I can definitely see a shift. Like, I know that the generations that are coming up now are actually wanting to say, no, we need to address this because this is serious. And yes, I've come from a church background as well. And there are some things that you cannot just pray out. Okay, with as much respect as I have for my church and my faith, there's some issues you do need to work them out before you can. It's not everything you can bring to the church and expect the church environment to sort that out. There are some things, and there are proper mental health illnesses, anxiety, depression. There are things that you can get help for through proper therapeutic courses. I'm not saying that church doesn't help. Yes, we have therapists now that work in church, that work in our church. So the church is beginning to see how the two work together rather than having it separate, saying, no, we can't talk about that here. I'm definitely seeing a positive shift to saying, well, actually, we need to talk about this because it's a real issue. It's a real concern, before we move on to saying, we're going to pray for you. We need to address and recognize that what's happening here, we can name that. It's anxiety, it's depression. And so we can deal with it and work with it rather than just saying, oh, it's okay, you'll get over that. Don't worry, just go and talk to your friends. That's not quite it. So I'm definitely seeing a shift and change of attitude towards talking about mental health within the church and within our the BAME communities as well, which is a good thing. So we're catching up, a lot of catching up to do, but we're starting to talk about it now.
Okay, what sort of advice would you give? Let's say you have a young person in school or maybe in college, and they are at a stage where a lot of change is happening in their life, and they're a bit just lost. They feel a bit lost, and they don't really know what they're going through. Their emotions are all over the place. They're questioning everything, and they don't know if they need therapy or if they don't. What sort of advice would you give to a young person in this day and age, in the social media era, in an era where, a lot of people are saying that we're not even, reality doesn't even, what is reality now? What advice would you give to that person? You mentioned walking, exercise. Is there any other routines that they can do?
Yeah, I think that the first thing I would recommend, O'Neill, is for that young person to express their views and feelings to somebody that they trust. It could be their parents, it might not be, it could be an uncle or an aunt, but to express how they feel to somebody who's going to listen. And again, I'm going back to that major fact and skill of being able to listen to somebody and make that person feel that they're listened to, because that's the beginning of it. Because out of that listening and that conversation, they might be able to get, appropriately signposted then, let's say, appropriately signposted. But it's just allowing that person, that young person, to feel like they're okay. Because sometimes it's difficult for a young person to bring up those topics because they feel that they're not going to be listened to, that they're going to be just told to go away. So it's really about making that young person, feel that it's okay to talk about it. So it's what we call creating a safe space. Creating a safe space, that is the first thing. And from there, they can get the advice they need for their particular situation.
Right.
I know I'm talking about Nilari because I work for them, but we're able to sort of to give the advice. And sometimes it might mean going to the GP as well, because obviously our GPs, that's part of their job, their skill set, to give information and support that's going to help that young person for their particular situation that they're in. So just having that ability and that window, making them feel it's okay to talk about stuff. So we have to be sensitive to them. Sometimes we have to notice the signs as well. Maybe they are becoming a little withdrawn, maybe not talking as much as they used to talk before, or not as active. So it's little basic things like that we can look out for, keep our eyes open for, and maybe approach to see if they want to sit down and have a talk about something. So being open and observant and aware is really, really, really helpful, actually, to young people. And I think just that sense that they can be listened to is very, very powerful, because from there, then you can start the journey. So, because I'm not trying not to say that, oh yeah, if a young person does, everything's going to be okay. I'm really bringing this down to the individual. And the beginning of every journey is letting that young person know that they're going to be listened to and not told to sort of like, oh, get on with it, you'll be fine. Because sometimes if they've had that reaction a couple of times and they don't feel that they can come and talk to anybody, they'll keep it all inside. And then that's when that anxiety starts to build, and the depression and the isolation just compounds, and we want to break away from that. So letting a young person know that they can come and talk to you without being judged is incredibly powerful. That's the beginning of the journey. The rest of the stuff you can do when they start to talk to you. Because like we said before, you must let them talk. You must let them express exactly how they're feeling, and just listen. Just got to listen. Because once it all comes out, my personal experience as a social worker, and I've proved this many times again in the past and now, if you let somebody talk enough, they will answer the questions that you had before you ask them.
Yeah.
You just have to sit there and close your mouth and let them finish the story. Yeah. I've proven it I can't tell you how many times I've proven that. And it saved me. It saved me asking the questions because I've let them speak. I didn't need to ask. It all comes out. So that's what the young person needs to know, that they can actually tell you their story without you jumping in and saying, oh, that. No. You need to give them time. We can give young people lots of things these days, but giving them time to express themselves is more powerful than anything you ever give them.
Wow. You mentioned, obviously, we just spoke about young people, so I'm gonna just draw on to parents now. So I used to work in sales, right?
Right, yeah.
And I remember our manager, we always had the same issue. You got somebody that comes into the shop and they're looking at a TV, for example, right? And they're looking around, or they're looking at a laptop or something. And you go to them as a sales advisor, can I help you? 9 times out of 10, what are you gonna get? No, I'm all right.
Yeah.
Right. They do have questions, but it's just almost like an automatic reaction.
It is.
It's like an automatic reaction. Teenagers as well, young people, very similar. Okay. You go through anything, no, I'm good, no, I'm fine. Myself included, somebody says, you're right. My natural reactions, yeah, I'm good, man, I'm good. Not too bad, I'm good. Right. Even though if you may be going through things, that could sometimes be your natural reaction.
Yeah.
What can parents do to sort of are there key questions or key ways to engage with young people who are possibly closed off? You know, the young person hasn't come to you, but as you mentioned before, they're showcasing signs. Maybe they're not as talkative, or maybe they're a bit more closed off. And you want to find the nature of this, the cause and the root issue of this. How do you delve deep into that? I know it's a tricky question.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a tricky question. It's a real question. That's what it is. It's a real question, and it's good. One of the things I've found that has worked with young people that I've been dealing with, again, is this ability, because sometimes what young people will do, they will sort of like test you. Okay, they will say, this is what doing one-to-one work with young people. First of all, it's like, okay, it comes to the first week. Is he going to come next week? And it's a bit like you've got to play a waiting game with them. So you have to be prepared to wait it out. And the thing is, I think with some parents, and I cannot say everybody, because I'm not an expert on parents, but usually with parents, they want an immediate answer. Yeah. They want the answer straight away. Yeah. So that's when young people just say, yeah, things are fine, because the parents ask them a question. So they get them off their back and say, yeah, it's okay. But if the parent was really genuinely ready to listen and sit it out with them, and again, it's creating the time. You got to create the spaces. You have to create the atmosphere. The atmosphere that says, I want to know what you're into. Because usually with parents, they have an agenda. It's like, I want you to do what I want you to do because I'm your parent, right? That's the agenda. I'm your mum, I'm your dad. Yeah. But parents have to get to the place where they need to find out where their child's agenda is. Because I'm telling you, it's nowhere near theirs. Nothing to do with theirs, right? Nothing, not even close. So the parent has to find out the level where they have to find where their child is. Even though that sounds a bit strange, you're living in the same house. Yeah. They're living in the same house, but they're on different they're living different realities. Because they could have different interests in music, different friends, different cultures, dress differently. So the parent has to come to the child level and find out what's going on in their world, rather than expecting them to come up to them. Because in my little limited experience, I've not seen that happen. You've got to find out where your child is. You have to find your child. And that sounds a bit of a strange thing. Not that they're lost, but you have to find where your child's at. So then you can relate to them. What music are they into? What clothes do they like? And it's not about, telling them off. It's about finding out why they like that. So it's actually finding a real, genuine interest in what your child's thinking, what's going on. You need to get into their world. So you've got to take a journey into their world. You cannot expect them; they won't come to you. You've got to find out what's going on with them. And this is highly generalized, by the way. I'm not saying this is the definitive how to parent your children, but it's from the experiences I've had and talking to them and how they come back and how even the things they don't say, which is really powerful. Yeah, absolutely. So parents might have to take a trip into their children's world. Yeah.
Do you ever get parents that come into Nilari and they want some counselling and advice, and they haven't got any issues, but their they feel that there's issues with their children and they don't know how to address it, so they come to Nilari to get that help? Do you ever get that?
Yeah, we've had that, and as you said, it's interesting because the parents are usually coming and saying, no, my child's doing this, and my child's doing that, and I can't do. And it's not just the child; it's the parent as well. The parent has concerns, but what happens is we might help them to sort of unearth those issues. So they might have concerns themselves, but don't know about it, which is not helping them relate to their child. So we will try to support them in identifying those concerns and allowing them to see, oh, hang on a minute, it's not just my child, there's stuff going on with me too. So it's not always one party. Sometimes it's two. It's both situations. And that's what we help the parents to do, to actually identify and notice what's going on with them, and not just thinking, oh, my child, I've got a problem child. It's not always the case. So sometimes we need to provide a mirror so they can see themselves. I think that's the best way to put it, gentlest way. So, because then other times, if you haven't got anyone else looking at you from the outside, you think you're doing everything completely well. You're right all the time. And sometimes, parents can get it wrong. We're all humans. Our children are just small humans, but we're all humans, different stages.
Right. Do you ever reach out to any communities and get shut down? So any organizations, like you said, you work with the police, but have you ever gone to an organization and they're just like, no?
Do you know, my best answer to that I can give on it is not that since I've been working with Nilari, that hasn't happened to me yet. And I haven't spoken to my colleagues about that question, but that is a really good question. So personally, I've not had that experience yet. I'm not saying it's never going to happen, but I haven't had that experience yet. But that's a really good question. I probably might ask one of my colleagues who've been there longer than me, if that has ever happened. That's a really good question. Yeah, but personally, I've not experienced it yet. Not yet.
Brilliant. And with Nilari, what is the age demographic of people? Is it literally just across the board, or do you have more of a predominant?
We work with adults, so anyone from 18 upwards.
Right.
In some particular cases, we will work with children under the age of 18 if we're working with a special project with an agency, which we have done in the past. But it's mainly 18 upwards adults basically that we work with.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for the insight on yourself and Nilari. I want to ask you, actually, if you don't mind, you mentioned your upbringing, West Indian upbringing, church and that. Was there a turning point that made you really say to yourself, I want to get involved in this line of work? Was there anything that led you to that?
Yeah, there was actually, O'Neill, because when I came to, because I'm originally from Cardiff, I was born in Cardiff, actually, lived in London for a bit, and then I got married to Joe and moved to Bristol. And the thing I've always been doing, even through church, was like working with the young people.
Right.
So I've always had a sort of an interest in young people, because I'm thinking, well, they're coming behind us, and you want them to have the best future they can, and to avoid some of the mistakes that I've made, and I'm still making, by the way. So yeah, you want to sort of pass on that knowledge. So that's always been I've had that thing in me, and I was working for a charity in Bristol before I went to become a social worker. It was a youth charity. I volunteered there, actually. And the manager of that agency said to me, "Have you ever thought of becoming a social worker?" And I said, "No, it didn't cross my mind." And she said, "Well, I think you should. I think you'd make a good social worker." And that lady, her name was Anne Delaney. If it wasn't for her spotting that in me, I don't think I would have gone down this path. So it just goes to show that thing about people looking and observing and seeing things in you that you don't see in yourself.
Absolutely.
So that's how my journey started, because that lady, that manager, spotted something in me and said, "I think you should she said, consider being a social worker." So I did. I retrained, went back to university as a mature student, and got my degree and diploma in social work, and the rest is history.
That's fantastic. That's amazing, because it's like teachers as well. I think there was an author, and she was saying that if it wasn't for one of her teachers that said, "I think you could be an author," she wouldn't never have
Thought about it.
reached that goal. And sometimes, yeah, it does take that one little spark, that one person to speak that life into you.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, okay. And sometimes like, you see some people in life, and it's like all they've ever heard is you can't, and it's broken them, and they can't look at themselves as able to achieve anything, and and then they have no, what do you call it? There's no
ambition.
Absolutely. There's no ambition to take a risk in anything.
Right.
They're like, no, because I'm going to fail, because that's how they feel. They feel that they are failures because they've always been told negative. So when you speak something positive into someone, or you encourage somebody, as we're talking about young people, that's all it takes sometimes. Sometimes it just takes a young person to hear, you've got a lot, even if it's something like you've got a lot of potential, or just noticing a talent in them and saying, you're really good at that. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they start to think, oh, okay, well, somebody's told me I'm good at it, I'm going to pursue it, because no one's ever told me I'm good at this thing before. I never realized how good I was. Okay, cool. So yeah, words are powerful. Words are very powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, the past year, we've seen a lot of things globally, and there's been a lot of things happening, especially in America. A lot of police brutality, horrible things that we've had to endure, had to witness as Black people. How has that affected you personally?
I mean, when the George Floyd incident occurred, it was shocking. The other thing I was thinking about, well, it happened in America, it's America, but it's still, I think over the time, you just realize that shouldn't happen to anybody anywhere, actually. But the fact that it was a Black person, there was a connection there, and it was very saddening, very, very saddening to watch that, someone could have their life taken away like that. Regardless of what he'd done, that wasn't the issue. I'm not saying, whether he's innocent or not, forget that. No person should be subjected to that sort of treatment. That not even animals are treated like that. So yeah, I was deeply affected by that. Deeply affected by it. Lots of people responded in different ways. Some people protested and took the knee. But as I told you before, I write poetry, so I wrote about it. And it's funny, I was talking to my sister, my elder sister Patricia, she's a teacher, before I wrote the poem, and that just helped to sort of consolidate our feelings about what happened. And we had a very, very long, deep discussion about it. And yeah, it was very painful, but I was able to put some words down on paper, which helped me to sort of manage it. Not get over it, to manage it. I won't say get over. Don't get over stuff like that. You just have to manage it. So I was able to put a few words down on a bit of paper to help express how I was feeling.
Did you watch the whole thing? Did you watch the whole video?
Yeah. It was painful. It's very painful.
Most people that I know who have seen it have said they wasn't able to watch the whole thing. Or they didn't.
Yeah,
They didn't see
it's
the whole. You know.
it's kind of unbelievable. It's kind of it's almost unbelievable.
Mm. You said you wrote a poem. Do you mind? Do you mind giving us a little snippet, or is
Yeah,
that is that exclusive
I
thing? Do you wanna?
no. I can read the whole thing to you. I can read the whole thing to you. No problem. And it's not that long. So I just want to go for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, right. It's called Black is the color of my skin. And this is it. From the day I was born, of my parents, I was their last fruit. God gave me what I own, this beautiful birthday suit. It fits me perfectly, day after day and year after year. And every time I look at it, it makes me grin. Black is the color of my skin. Growing up, and as time went by, I tried to fit in. Lord, I tried. Bullied at school, and some fights I may have started. Win, lose, or draw, I'd leave broken-hearted, but deep inside I said, one day I'll win. Black is the color of my skin. Stopped by police multiple times. What was the reason? I've committed no crime. Just a routine check. That bulge in your pocket looks strange. Keeping my cool while inside I rage. I won't give them a reason to take me in. Black is the color of my skin. June 2020, here we are again. 3 steps forward, 300 back in pain. Is it too hard to ask for equality? Please, please do tell, what is it you want from me? I give an honest day's work for an honest day's money, smiling through the hours while inside I'm feeling funny. I don't really want to fight. We're the human race and we all can win. Just accept me for who I am. Black is the color of my skin. Thank you.
Wow. That was deep. That was very deep, man. I could tell that you were touched at that time.
Yeah,
How
definitely.
did you start write? Did it take you a while before you started to write that, or was it sort of instant?
It was instant. It was really, it was just quite, it flowed. After my conversation with my sister about what had happened, I wrote that the same night. It just came out. It just came out. Yeah, I didn't have to think about that. It was the quickest poem I've ever written, I think. It just, because everything was just there, it just came out.
From the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Michael, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. And I want to say thank you for your time. I want to say
thank you
for your insight, for your education. And for those that want to know how to get in contact with yourself or with Nilari, how would they go about that process?
The easiest way is to contact our website, which if you put Nilari into Google, it will come up. So nilari.co.uk, which is spelled, I'll spell Nilari because that's the thing. It's NILAARI. I'll spell that again. So it's NILAARI, nilari.co.uk. You put that into Google and it will come up straight away because there's no other organization with that name. So that's the nice thing about it. It'll come up straight away and the phone numbers are there, the email's there. You can contact us or anyone can contact us if they need help or support or advice.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, once again, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your openness. And thank you for your passion as well. So
thank you.
So
it's been a pleasure.
Great. To all those that have been watching, this has been Melanin Mindset. So I'm saying good morning, good afternoon, or good night.
Take care.